The right does it as well. And let me give you an example on their side. The firing of Jimmy Kimmel, where the FCC leaned on his parent company to fire him, was an exact example of that. Where the weight of the federal government is leaning on someone because of something they said, a late night comedy host, and he gets fired. I am against that in all forms, but I see the trans issue you described as a small issue. I see it as much bigger than that, and I see it more so as governmental overreach and policy more than anything.
How do you feel about the firing of Jimmy Kimmel and restoration and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like what he said in making light of the assassination, because I had a little more of a personal level on how I felt about the assassination. But as I've said already, I'm a strong belief in free speech and open dialogue and being able to say, he wasn't inciting violence, he wasn't, trying to cause harm to anybody. I never watch him because I don't think he's that funny. A lot of those late night shows have been going all political. It's not really even just jokes anymore. It's all politics. But I agree with Scott in that instance. No, I don't think it was right, and he's bounced back and thriving. I think because of it. No press is bad press, but yeah, I think anytime the government is going to lean in on what you say and try to either get you fired or imprisoned, it is an overreach. Just like, I'll go back a little bit further back in time, and kind of, we were talking about this on the way in, how under the Biden administration putting pressure on social medias to censor information during COVID, and even these organizations coming out now saying that they were pressured by the administration to censor certain information. Facebook, Google, Twitter at the time, and Instagram. Definitely during COVID, there's a lot of information that went against the mainstream. Get your vaccine. This is what you have to do. Wear a mask. This is how you fight it. Anytime someone would come out and it's like, well, these vaccines are untested. Let's hold on. Let's wait until there's a little more research before you put this in your body. That kind of, all that information a lot of it was censored and held back, or at least harder to find. Also, creators that were either conservative or even kind of center of it during the presidential campaigns, they were being censored, and videos from TikTok being taken down all the time. If you mention being against abortion or whatnot, they'd get strikes. I can't think of what it's called, but if you get so many, you can have your account banned. And now even Mark Zuckerberg had come out and said that he had pressure from the Biden administration. Even Google was being pressured to censor information. So I think that's wrong. Both sides are guilty of it. I think it was wrong for the Biden administration to do it, and then the Trump administration to censor. And if Trump doesn't like what a comedian says about him, then it is what it is. At least you're being talked about by a comedian, I think there should be a separation, and limiting people to do their research, I think, was a big issue during that Biden administration.
Social issues are driving the wedge in our country. The emotion, the power behind the force of that division is related to what was a faith investment has now crept into, I guess, a moral decision now into our political life. So it's driving a lot of the dynamics of our elections. The last 3 presidential elections, the evangelical vote was significant. It's statistically demonstrated, at least described, and I believe to be true, that the voting between the Trump-Biden election and the number of votes between Trump, Kamala Harris, the actual, I believe, number of votes dropped in both camps. In Biden's case, there was an overwhelming majority of Democratic votes as opposed to Republican votes. A lot of Democrats turned out. A lot less Democrats turned out for Kamala Harris than Biden. And that made that divide more important because it was a closer race. And the evangelical vote tipped it towards Trump this time, as opposed to last time Biden was able to win. I have my views about that. I don't think it was strictly a moral decision. I think it was a large part of it on the social issues we're talking about. But I personally believe, this is just my opinion, based on what I've read and my view of history in our country, which is my next book. Little plug. I don't think our nation is ready for a woman president, and especially a black woman president. I don't think our nation is ready for that yet. And I think that's why Kamala was not competitive with Trump. That being said, a lot of evangelicals voted for Trump. My struggle is how you separate the individual from our moral fibers. That goes back to my discussion with Obama. For the first time, I listened to a man, and by the way, I don't know where you were, how young you were in that era, but I listened to his message as a Christian, and he was the first political candidate that I ever heard that gave such a clear message of his faith that I related to. And I didn't agree with his positions, but I listened to the man, and he allowed me grace to look at other views. Mm-hmm. And I started to listen to those views. I learned from him the ability to see position from two sides. That's when I started to embrace more on the Democratic side, because I valued the man as opposed to the policies. I struggle with that now. I struggle with, where do you draw the line? When does the individual influence my position on policies, even spiritual faith-related policies? And I think, to me, the candidate is as equally as important as the positions. You know, when we have a chief executive who basically is pretty lawless, I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but he's operating with disregard to the Constitution. And I can't get behind that. I just cannot. All that is a premise to ask you guys, how do you feel like it's going? We're 9 months into the administration.
You want me to jump off on that one?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so first I'll kind of respond to what you said there. You'll often hear it say that Trump is a cult of personality, right? Mm-hmm. People follow him because of who he is and the person. I've found that, sure, there are people who believe that, but if we're talking among people of faith, at least the people that I know, and I have a very big family and all of them voted for Trump, their view is that he's a horrible person. Were my father in a room with him, my father would not want to speak to him. But the alternative is, and it's a pragmatic decision, I have a man who is a very flawed and imperfect arbiter of what I want, but at least he shares the policy decisions that I want to see happen. And if he does it, then that's wonderful. Or I have Kamala Harris, who did not separate herself from Biden, and Biden endorsed all of the social things that they could not get behind. So I have this woman who I'm sure she could be very nice, probably nicer and a better person than Trump, and they would say that. However, she will not do any of the things that I think are best. So it's a pragmatic decision. So the idea that Trump is a cult of personality with all of his followers, I think, is not true. I think that it's a pragmatic decision of this person might actually step outside of politics as usual and do the things that I want done. Because you'll often hear the Democrats say, the Republican Party is dead, Trump killed it, and he's replaced it with his party. In a lot of ways, they're right, because the Republican Party, from the view of my parents, they were weak and ineffectual, and they did not fight. They did not have the courage to fight back against a lot of these societal changes. And my parents want that fight to happen. My family wants that fight to happen. And I'm not aligned with my family on everything, but I'm aligned with them on a lot of these policy issues. And I would have to agree that the Republicans, up until Trump, were largely cowards on a lot of issues. And so it's not so much that they revere the man, but they want these decisions to be made, and they want these policies to be enacted. But so as far as how things are going, I'll start with what I think is good. One of the number one issues that I voted for was getting this immigration situation under control. I think that's going well. And I think it's a dirty business. I think it's an ugly business. And I don't think we ever should have gotten here, because we should have had a working, functional immigration system in the first place. But now that we're here, where we don't even have a clue how many people are living here illegally, I think the number that they keep telling us is 11 million, but that 11 million number has been the number since I was a teenager. I think it's probably closer to 30 million by this point. We have to do something about that. If you do not have a country that has borders and a clear delineation between the way that you treat and interact with a citizen and the way that you treat and interact with a non-citizen, you don't have a country. What is the benefit of being a citizen in a country where you are treated no different than someone who's not? And so I think that we have to have an immigration system that makes sense, that of course is humane, but also is enforced properly. We have a border, we have a process, we have laws. If you skirt that process, you go back.
So, and questions? How do you feel? I mean, you guys, thank you for doing this. Really, thank you. I really appreciate it. Getting out, driving out here. So.
It's a nice drive. I think it's good. I strongly believe on dialogue, communication, and being able to sit in a room with people that you agree on some things, you disagree on other things, and having adult conversations and not losing your cool,
Yeah.
I think we need more of that. So any kind of opportunity like this, I think it is good to, to try to do stuff like that.